So, welcome back to another episode, and let's just get into it. This is the, pre-last episode. I don't know which way you call that in English. Vorletzte, it's in German. So, vorletzte? Penultimate episode of the series where we cover the 16 states, the 16 Bundesländer, 16 Bundesländer in German. And we go through these articles from this webpage, deutschland.de, where there are short descriptions, or rather shorter articles about it with important facts. And yeah, so this is the penultimate episode about Schleswig-Holstein, and let's just get into the article, I guess. Of course, I'm always gonna translate it word by word in context, you could say, or generally in context, and yeah, just so you understand. So, Schleswig-Holstein, first of course, some general facts, as always. Schleswig-Holstein, of course not Holstein, that is the English pronunciation, is very much located in the north. It is the most northern federal state, or Bundesland as we call it in German, of Germany, of course bordering Denmark. In German it's called Dänemark. It is bordering the Northern Sea, I think this is the Northern Sea, Nordsee, and I think in English it's called Baltic Sea, so the Ostsee in German. Its most important cities are Lübeck, Kiel, which is the capital, Flensburg, which, one important fact, this you don't necessarily need to know, but one thing a lot of people say, for example, is du bekommst einen Punkt in Flensburg, just to show you that. For example, this is an entire sentence. Du bekommst einen Punkt in Flensburg. You will receive a point in Flensburg. This is, just to let you know, a kind of saying not necessarily this sentence, but for example, this sentence, because it is related to the, to the car, Auto, I don't know, Autobahnbehörde or something, I don't know, highway authority, you could say, yeah, which, überwachen. Monitors the highways, you could say, and if you overpass or surpass, I don't know, the speed limits on these, not necessarily just the highways, but general streets in Germany, you get a so-called point, in German Punkt, in Flensburg, which just means that you get a, I don't know if it's in like the US or non-European states or non-German, I guess, cities, or like abroad from or apart from Germany, if it's the same, but you get a point on your, drivers, I don't know, the license or something, and you get kind of a, do you say penalty? A Strafe. Yeah, penalty, you could say punishment, punishment, and you get a point, and I think if you get 3 of them, your driver's license is getting, they pull away your driver's license for 3 months or something, and therefore you always get a point in Flensburg, Punkt in Flensburg, but yeah, just to let you know. Also, other cities you might know, Neumünster, I think. I might confuse that with something else, because, for example, in, I think, NRW, Nordrhein-Westfalen, there is also, I might not find it, but I think here is something, should be Münster somewhere, I'm not quite sure, rather here in this area, might not find it right now, but there should be, Düren, here in this area. I mean, it doesn't matter too much, but just to let you know that there are some cities in Germany that might sound familiar to you, but they just have similar names, so yeah. Husum is also maybe a city, but that I might know or have heard of. Of course, it borders Hamburg. It borders, this is Schleswig-Holstein, this is Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Yeah, I recall the name. Bremen, but Bremen is inside of... What is it inside of? I think it's, what's it called? Niedersachsen, because of Hanover. Let me just look it up. I'm not too familiar, even though I did this series, so I don't recall every single federal state or Bundesland, so not Niedersachsen. So it's called Niedersachsen. And yeah, it's Niedersachsen, and then inside of it is Bremen. So, and any other important facts, of course, just to, like, in advance, this is another state, like, for example, as I said, with Sachsen and the new so-called new states, which were added after the reunion of Germany or West Germany and the DDR. This is very much, like, in these terms, this is very much influenced by the Slavic states like Poland, Czechia, and all these kind of, with, like, slightly Russian influence. This is very much influenced, and contrary to that, by the Nordic, the Scandinavian states, you could say, especially, of course, Denmark, which is the reason why, for example, these names have these kind of, you could say, weird names. It's not necessarily really German, even though it might sound German, but for example, Kappeln, or Föhr, or Hörnum, these are really, or just Sylt, which is a very rich people but popular island. And yeah, these are all kind of names which are not necessarily too German. For example, even the name Cuxhaven is not necessarily too German, but this is, I think, more influenced by the Dutch. But yeah. But for example, Stralsund is also something, I think it's a German pronunciation of the probably Danish word. But yeah. So, this was it for the introductory part, I guess. Any other things to say about it? Maybe just I think Kiel was, or is a football team that advanced into the German league. I don't know if this season. This is only the only thing I also know about it. Yeah, maybe the Islands. Into the Bundesliga, by the way. But I don't know. I think maybe, or last season, and maybe they descended again. I don't know. Is it called descent? I don't know. But they went down again into the second league. I see my battery is quite high, so I'm just gonna... Sorry. So, and we also have the islands Föhr, Sylt, Amrum. These are with, like, Amrum, Borkum. I don't know. I might confuse all those because a lot of them are also located here. For example, Norderney, Spiekeroog, Langeoog, but these are all these kind of northern Hamburg area islands. But I'm just saying that here, these islands, for example, Föhr, Sylt, this belongs to Sylt, Hörnum, and I have never heard of Hörnum, by the way, but for example, Föhr, or other islands I might know. Yeah. Sylt, of course, is the biggest, but those are just some things, or something that Schleswig-Holstein is famous for, maybe, but I don't know if most people even connect it to Schleswig-Holstein. Anyways, so this was it for the rather long introductory part, and let's just get into the article. So, Schleswig-Holstein, this is of course the flag. I don't necessarily know why it's blue, white and red, but yeah. Im Land zwischen Nord- und Ostsee fühlen sich Seebären zu Hause. Schleswig-Holstein ist das nördlichste Bundesland und seine Hauptstadt Kiel glänzt alljährlich beim weltweit größten Segelsportereignis, der Kieler Woche. Zu den wichtigsten Branchen Schleswig-Holsteins zählen die Medizintechnik, die maritime Wirtschaft oder Informations- und Kommunikationstechnologien. Daten und Fakten. Bevölkerung 2,95 Millionen. Landeshauptstadt Kiel. Größe 15.799 Quadratkilometer. Bruttoinlandsprodukt in Millionen Euro 2024 126.829 in Klammern Platz 10. Bruttoinlandsprodukt pro Kopf 2024 42.705, Platz 11. Einzigartig, grenzt an 2 Meere, die Nord- und die Ostsee, deswegen auch das Land zwischen den Meeren genannt. Sitze im Bundesrat 4, Platz 1 im Ranking, meistbefahrene künstliche Wasserstraße der Welt, der Nord-Ostsee-Kanal. Special Fact: Die kleinste Stadt Deutschlands, Arnis, mit 300 Einwohnern, liegt hier. So, let's just start with the first part. Im Land zwischen Nord- und Ostsee fühlen sich Seebären zu Hause. Im, in the, in dem, in the, Land, country, or in this case federal state, because this is the same. Zwischen, between, Nord, north, or northern in this case maybe in English, and, Ostsee, word by word that would mean East Sea or Eastern Sea, but this I think refers to the Baltic Sea if I'm not mistaken. Baltic Sea, I hope this is correct, yeah. Ostsee, which is here, and Germany has probably the smallest part of it, Poland has a lot of it, and of course is it Sweden, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's Sweden. In German it's called Schweden. And fühlen, Eastern Sea, Baltic Sea in this case, fühlen, feel, they feel, sich, themselves, sich fühlen. In this case, it's kind of, because this is a reflexive verb in this case, but in general, to feel, in German, fühlen, is not necessarily reflexive, so you don't need to say, I feel myself, ich fühle mich. This is only when you refer to your own being, like, I feel, in English you say, I feel, for example, sad. In German it would be, ich fühle mich traurig. Ich fühle mich traurig. I feel sad. So you would have to say, I feel myself, which makes kind of more sense, but more sense, it's always subjective, so yeah. It just makes a difference if you say, ich fühle, for example, I feel sadness would be the same in German, ich fühle Traurigkeit. Ich fühle Traurigkeit. This is because this is of course the object, so this is accusative and you don't refer to yourself. But if you have to refer to yourself, you have to say, I feel myself, basically. So I feel me sad, or I feel myself sad. Ich fühle mich traurig. Or you could just say, ich bin traurig. But this is just, yeah, extra. So, im Land, in the country or state between North and Eastern Sea, feel themselves, you could say. Seebären, which means sea bears. Bear means bear. I always confuse it with bear and bear because in English the pronunciation is not necessarily too linear, you could say. So, sea bears, you could say, because this is a more made-up word. This is why it's in, what's it called? Anführungszeichen, I guess. Quotation marks, yeah. In quotes, quotation marks. Zu Hause. In this case, this means at home. If it was to be written, for example, this way. So, like a noun, if this was to be written with uppercase at the beginning of a sentence, it would either mean das Zuhause, which means the home, or if you just say Zuhause kind of as a preposition, like where, this would just mean at home. So just to distinguish between the both of them. So, in this case, it's more the preposition. This is why it's written in lowercase, because it's an adjective, you could say, or like it describes the way. So yeah, adjective. Im Land zwischen Nord- und Ostsee fühlen sich Seebären zu Hause. In the state between North and Eastern Sea feel themselves sea bears at home. So, in the state between the North and the Baltic Sea, sea bears feel at home or feel home. Schleswig-Holstein ist das nördlichste Bundesland und seine Hauptstadt Kiel glänzt alljährlich beim weltweit größten Segelsportereignis, der Kieler Woche. Schleswig-Holstein, which is, I hope, the same in English, because the translation into English are always, I don't know, I think they are terrible, but this is just my opinion. Schleswig-Holstein ist das nördlichste Bundesland, the most northern, nördlich is just northern, and nördlichste is the most northern, so the basically adjective form of north. Nördlichste, das nördlichste, and this is of course the neutral form, das nördlichste Bundesland, das Land. The country or the state, federal state in this case. Und seine Hauptstadt, and his in this case, but because his is like his, it would mean it's in English, but his refers to the Bundesland, the land, and as this is neutral, das is neutral, it's always masculine because the standard is masculine when you, what's it called? Decline, I don't know, like go into the cases with accusative, nominative, dative, and all of these kinds of things. And genitive, so the four. In German there are of course 4 cases, look that up if you want to. So, und seine Hauptstadt, and in this case you would say in English its. Hauptstadt means capital, main city, by the way. Haupt means main, derives probably from some other version of head, which meant Haupt, but it just means main. Stadt means city, so main city, or in this case capital, of course, in English. Kiel, which is the city, the capital. Glänzt means shines, or what's it called? Shimmers. Glänzen. Shines. Yeah, sparkles, you could say. This is what I was referring to, because glänzen is more like when you have, I mean, at least this is my imagination, but I think it's more when you have some, you could say sparkle, like when there are, I don't know, like lights, for example, when you look at the sea and it's kind of sparkling. I think this is more the way to say it, but necessarily it can have probably different meanings. So not necessarily shine, or not necessarily sparkle, like with more, I don't know, prickly thing to it. I don't know if anyone understands what I mean, but I hope you get what I mean. Alljährlich, so Schleswig-Holstein is the most northern federal state, and its capital, Kiel, shines alljährlich means all year long. All means all. Year, this is the, or jährlich is the adjective form of year, so all year long you could say, or all yearly you could say. This would basically say word by word all yearly, but nobody says that this way in English, I guess. So you could say all year, not all year long. This is of course not correct. It's every year. Every single year. Bei dem, as the, weltweit, worldwide. Weit means wide, Welt means world, so yeah, weit means just wide. Yeah. Or far, you could also say, but this is, in this case, more referring to the word breit, which means broad. Yeah. Beim weltweit, at the worldwide größten, biggest Segelsportereignis. Segelsport means, I don't actually know what segeln means in English. Is it not segeln? Segeln. Of course, sailing. And sailing, sport means sport. So sailing sport, you could say. In English, nobody says sailing sport, I guess, or maybe in a different way, like the sport of sailing, but this just means, is the more, you could say, broad term for saying the sport of sailing, basically. Ereignis means, what's it called? Action, event, I guess. So every year at the worldwide biggest sailing event, der Kieler Woche, the of Kiel, you could say, week. Woche means week, so, but this is I would say, own noun, you could say, and this is this event, which is in this case it is called a Segelregatta. I don't know what regatta is in English. I hope it's the same, but I don't know. Sailing regatta. Or yard race. I guess you can't hear that, but I could hear that. So it's a sailing regatta. Yearly. Here's some history to that. Seit Ende des 19. Jahrhunderts in Kiel ausgetragen wird. Since the end of the 19th century in Kiel is being held, or outbrought, you could say, but held. Wird is passive, so yeah. Seems to be a very big festival. I personally have never heard of that, but interesting. But this is also something that you can, I think, can see very easily or very quickly, that the more northern states, like, I mean, even Hamburg probably, but like Schleswig-Holstein, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Niedersachsen, those are all the states, maybe Niedersachsen a bit less, but that which are, if they are located at like water at the sea, they tend to be more, in Germany you would say Hanse, but this is the older word. We had that, I think, in the Hamburg video. Hanseatic based, you could say. So they tend to have more with sailing, with maybe even surfing, but I think you get what I mean, with fish exporting and all this stuff, or fishing generally. Yeah. Beim größten Segelsportereignis, so let's read that again, der Kieler Woche. Schleswig-Holstein ist das nördlichste Bundesland und seine Hauptstadt Kiel glänzt alljährlich beim weltweit größten Segelsportereignis, der Kieler Woche. So, Schleswig-Holstein is the most northern federal state, and its, you could also say his, but I'm gonna say its capital, Kiel, shines or sparkles every single year, you could say, or all yearly, but this is of course not correct, every single year, at the worldwide biggest sailing sport, I don't know, event, the Kieler Week, or Week of Kiel, but Kieler Week we're going to say. So in general this means Schleswig-Holstein is the most northern federal state, and its capital Kiel shines every single year at the worldwide most, or like the worldwide biggest, do you say that? I think you can. Sailing event, the Kieler Week. Zu den wichtigsten Branchen Schleswig-Holsteins zählen die Medizintechnik, die maritime Wirtschaft oder Informations- und Kommunikationstechnologien. Don't be scared of that word, by the way. So, zu den wichtigsten Branchen. To the most important branches, you could say, or branch. I think there's also always this kind of, what's it called? This derives from French, and in English there's also the word branch, but it's not the same as Branche in German, and the, what's it called? Ast? Branch. Yeah, it's kind of, I think it all derives from the French word of ast, so branch, but in English, Branche from the German means industry rather, so yeah, to the most important you could say branches, but industries Schleswig-Holsteins. This is the genitive form, so it means with the S of Schleswig-Holstein. To the most important industries of Schleswig-Holstein zählen, which means to count. In this case, this counts to that. Do you say that in English? I don't know, but like this belongs, rather. This means in this case belongs to. But in general, zählen derives from the word Zahl, which is of course number. So you count, like in terms of numbers in general, but yeah, belongs, you could say. Die Medizintechnik, the word by word that would mean medicine, technique, or technology maybe. I'm just going to translate it as one because I don't necessarily know the exact translation in this case. Yeah, medical technology maybe is more correct. Yeah. Die maritime Wirtschaft. Do you say maritime? I don't know. Let me just have a look. Alright. Maritime. Interesting. I know you can't hear that. The maritime, what's it called? Economy. So die maritime Wirtschaft means what I was referring to 1 or 2 minutes ago, the like fishing, sailing, all this kind of stuff. Die maritime Wirtschaft, the maritime economy or industry. Oder means or, Informations- und Kommunikationstechnologien. So information und means and, Kommunikationstechnologien means communication. Communication is the same as communication with an S is of, so the genitive case. So the technologies of communication, or communications, you could also say, but in this case, technologies of communication. So zu den wichtigsten Branchen Schleswig-Holsteins zählen die Medizintechnik, die maritime Wirtschaft oder Informations- und Kommunikationstechnologien. Means, word by word, to the most important industries Schleswig-Holsteins count, or of Schleswig-Holstein, counts the medical technology, the maritime industry or economy, or information and communication technology. So to the most important industries in Schleswig-Holstein, you could say belong the medical technology, the maritime economy, or the information and communication technologies. So, the next parts, Data and Facts, Daten und Fakten. Bevölkerung, Population, 2,95 Millionen. Population, 2.95 million. Landeshauptstadt, Kiel. This means federal state. Capital of the federal state is Kiel. Kiel, as I of course said before. Größe, size, 15.799 Quadratkilometer, 15.799 square kilometers. Bruttoinlandsprodukt in Millionen Euro 2024, 126.829, Platz 10, which means GDP, gross domestic product, in million euros 2024, 126.829, 10th place. Bruttoinlandsprodukt pro Kopf 2024, in Klammern 2024, Stand 2024, 42.705, Platz 11. So, gross domestic product per head, which means per person, as I of course explained on like the first few videos, I think more in depth, but I always explain it once again. So, Bruttoinlandsprodukt pro Kopf, per head, per person, as of 2024, 42.705, Platz 11, in Klammern Platz 11, 42.705, 11th place, or place 11, which would equal to, if I'm not mistaken, Let me just pull up a what's it called, calculator. 42 divided by 12. 42 divided by 12, because I'm too lazy to. This means 3,500 euros per month, which seems to be at the lower side of the chart of the 16 federal states. And keep in mind that in Germany, I don't know if you knew that if you're not from Germany, because in Germany there's this thing with taxes. In German it's called Steuern. We have a lot of Steuern, for example, the what's it called? I forgot the word. For example, is it called Gehaltssteuer or something? Gehaltssteuer or something, I don't know. Income tax, of course. The Mindest, there is something Mindest, which is for everything you buy, every single thing. There is a minimal, I don't know, like 8%. I think it was lowered to, or it was 11 and lowered to 8% or something in 2021 or something. I don't remember exactly, but it was lowered by like 3%. And we have a lot of taxes, but for example, especially the income tax, this is what you have to imagine. Maybe I'm confusing it. Let me just look at brutto and netto. Brutto, netto. Sorry, I just have to verify something here. Brutto, netto. Not Rechner. Brutto, netto. Was ist brutto? Was ist das Brutto und Netto? Vor Abzug. Yeah, okay, I was correct. So, brutto, by the way, I think here. I've never explained it. Basically, brutto is the before the tax gets onto that. So that means, maybe actually let's what's it called? Let's calculate that. Brutto, netto, netto, Rechner. Let's just calculate that. Gehaltsrechner. So that means Gehaltsrechner. This may be fun, but Einstellung oder ablehnen. Eine deaktivieren. This is always annoying as hell. So, monatlicher Wert. What we were having, we had 42,705. Let me just pull up the Ubuntu calculator once again. 42,705 divided by 12 should be 3,558.75. So 3,558,75 euro per month. And that is, maybe we copy that. If that is the monthly for, in this case, Schleswig-Holstein. And let's just copy that. So this probably is a kind of medium value, 3,000. This is brutto. I don't know if this is. I don't know if this is. No, that's not. Nothing. You might not necessarily understand all of that, but I'm just trying to show you something. Steuerfreibetrag. No, these are just like additional things. Let me just try to calculate that. And this means there seems to be something off. I'm not quite sure. Anyways, but what I'm just saying is that in general, I think this is probably because you get some money back, or I don't necessarily know all of that, but in general, in Germany, this might necessarily not be too correct, is that you have to, let me just pull up the number, Gehaltssteuer, Gehaltssteuer, Deutschland. Einkommensteuer. This is what I was referring to. Einkommensteuer. Einkommenssteuer. Steuer. This is Einkommensteuer, income tax. This is the precise word. And in Germany, it's here between 14 and 45% of the money. Probably in general, maybe I overestimated a bit, but like in general, you have to give away around probably 30 to, I think, mostly 45% of your money that you make. Probably you get something back because of social blah 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 that the government gives you. This is why it's not necessarily from the 3,500, like not necessarily 2,000 or around 1,700 exactly, but I think you get what I mean. But these are very, very high in Germany. This is what I was wondering was like around about 2,500, because that seemed to be me a bit kind of too high, but I don't know. Because in general, when you make, for example, 10,000 euros a month, you probably, if I'm not mistaken, I might be completely incorrect, but you probably maximally get like 7,000, but in general probably around about 5,500 or something of that 10,000. So yeah, this is very something that a lot of German people also are annoyed by, you could say. So Bruttoinlandsprodukt, this is what I was referring to. Bruttoinlandsprodukt, this means before the tax. So after the tax, if this calculator was correct, it should be around about 31,000, but maybe it's more around about 25,000 or something, but I'm not quite sure. So after the tax, paying the tax, which is the 11th place. So let's move on with the list. Einzigartig, unique, grenzt an zwei Meere, die Nord- und die Ostsee, deswegen auch das Land zwischen den Meeren genannt. Unique, borders at two seas, grenzt an zwei Meere, die Nord- und die Ostsee, the Northern and the Baltic Sea, or East Sea you could say, North and East Sea, Northern and the Baltic Sea. Deswegen, therefore you could say. Wegen is always because of. Deswegen means, is the genitive form of, it's kind of harder to explain, but this in general means therefore or that for, because of that you could say, or that because of. Auch also das Land zwischen den Meeren genannt, the country, or in this case federal state, between the seas, genannt, called, being named, but in this case rather being called, because it's about speaking and not necessarily about giving a name. So unique, borders two seas. Do you say, yeah, borders two seas? The Northern and the Baltic Sea, therefore also being called the federal state between the seas, you could say. Sitze im Bundesrat, but this is also, I think, Denmark in general. Sitze im Bundesrat, seats in the Bundesrat, which is the representation of the federal states. So the kind of parallel, government, but rather in terms of federal states where they make, I don't know, some other politics, laws, I don't know. I'm not quite familiar with that. Platz 1 im Ranking, meistbefahrene künstliche Wasserstraße der Welt, der Nord-Ostsee-Kanal. Place 1 in the ranking, meistbefahrene, most driven, you could say, but this is rather, driven, I don't know. Because driven, traveled rather. Because driven is also in English a more, you could say, metaphoric, I don't know, metaphoric words. So most traveled being, I don't know, but like in this case it's referring to the boats, because most traveled, künstlich means, means artificial. So most driven, most traveled, artificial with the E, it's feminine, because it's die Straße, which is feminine. So die Wasserstraße means water street, word by word, but this rather refers to a more broad term for like river, seas, and waterway. This is the correct term, I think. So most traveled artificial waterway, der means of the. This is also just the general form of the for the male, masculine form. But in this case, it's just of the for the feminine form, Welt, der Welt. For the masculine form, it would be des. For example, der Wald des Waldes. Let me just show you. Des Waldes. This is derived from the word der Wald. Then we have der Welt. This derives from the word die Welt. Welt. And then we have des Buches. Das Buch. This is, by the way, another example I was referring to earlier, that in the neutral form it's generally more leaning when it's being, declined, I don't know, when it's going into these cases and not the nominative case, so an object or like kind of being referred to, you could say, or used differently than the subject. This is mostly, I don't know if it's every time, but I think almost always the male form or referring to the male form. So if it's the neutral form, it's the genitive form is des Buches, so of the book. If it's the feminine form, it's der Welt, which is funnily enough the same as the subject of the male form, the masculine, and which derives from the feminine. And so this derives from the feminine. And then we have des Waldes, which is the same as here. So this kind of just takes the male form, which derives from the male form of der Wald, which means, of course, the forest, the world, and the book. And then, where were we? Meist befahrene künstliche Wasserstraße der Welt, der Nord-Ostsee-Kanal. Of the world, der Nord-Ostsee-Kanal, the North Baltic Sea Channel. So I think this is probably a waterway that connects the Northern Sea and the Baltic Sea. Let me just have a look. Nord-Ostsee-Kanal. So this is, where is let me have a look. Is there somewhere? No, not there. Maybe in the middle of it. Is it here? Is it this? Probably it's this, right? No, that's just too close, probably. I don't know, but it appears to me very obvious that this is probably the channel, I guess, because which other opportunity do you have to connect the both of them, both of the seas? Yeah, at Brunsbüttel, Kork, probably starting from there up to Labor, I don't know how to pronounce that, or Strande, or Friedrichsort, whichever city you want to take, or rather probably village, I don't know, because they tend to be really small up there, the cities, and more like rural or country-like. So, and Brücken, is there Brunsbüttel, yeah, here, this is what we were saying, and where was it? Elbe, not Ostsee. Is it just this? I don't know. Is this Elbe? I have no idea, honestly. So I think this is probably the connecting river, the waterway, but yeah, let's just move on. Platz 1 im ranking, place 1 in the ranking, most travelled, you could say, artificial waterway of the world, the Northeastern Sea Channel, or Northern Baltic Sea, like connecting the both of them, channel. Special fact, Die kleinste Stadt Deutschlands, Arnes, mit 300 Einwohnern liegt hier. Of course, we have to look that up. That means basically the smallest city called Arnes is located there. Arnes. I'm gonna translate that, of course, just to have a look. It is located right at the, very much in the north, at the border to, not necessarily directly there, but very close to the border to Denmark. Yeah, so this is very much in the north of it. Okay. And special fact, die kleinste Stadt Deutschlands, Arnes, mit 300 Einwohnern liegt hier. Special fact, of course the same in English. The smallest city of Germany, die kleinste Stadt Deutschlands, the kleinste, derives from the word klein, of course, which means small, kleinste, feminine form of small, Stadt, city, Deutschlands, of Germany, Arnes, it's the name of the city, with 300 Einwohnern, derives from the word wohnen, which means to live, reside, stay, basically live, but like inside of a house. And this means mit 300 Einwohnern. Einwohner means, I think it's resident, I guess, or inhabitant. With 300 inhabitants, liegt hier, lays here, so basically it's located here. The smallest city of Germany, Arnes, with 300 inhabitants, is located here. And I think this was it for today. This was the penultimate episode of the series, so we have 15 of the 16 states covered up to this point. And that was it for today. I hope you liked it. Leave a comment, leave a like if you want to. And of course, subscribe if you want to. And see you in the next episode. Bye!